Welcome to Buckets, Boards, and Blocks. I am your host, Monica McNutt. This week, our special guest is Cassidy Hubbarth of ESPN. Cassidy wears many hats at the worldwide leader, but her passion is basketball. We have a lot of ground to cover, so Darlene, let's run it.
Buckets, Boards, and Blocks is a presentation of Pure Hoops Media. Buckets, Boards, and Blocks is hosted by a former Georgetown Hoya who likes nothing better than a well-executed fade screen and thinks DC ballers are the smartest. A lover of threes in transition, Monica McNutt.
Darlene, my girl, I do love a good pull-up three in transition. I swear it's the most beautiful part of the game. This week, we are very happy to have Cassidy Hubbarth of ESPN on this week's show. Cassidy has become one of the smartest voices in basketball media. She's also a good friend of my producer extraordinaire and sidekick, Bruce Bernstein, from their time together at ESPN. You've seen Cass patrolling the sidelines on NBA games at ESPN, hosting the red carpet proceedings at the ESPY Awards, covering the Las Vegas Summer League, and her Jays with the sneaker game on fire, just so you know, for the record. And of course, hosting Hoop Streams on Twitter, hosting the Hoop Collective podcast, working the sidelines at the All-Star Celebrity Game, and doing college football studio work for ABC. Prior to all of that, she hosted NBA Tonight and NBA Coast to Coast on ESPN, and she has also become a mom for the first time in December. Cassidy, my girl, is there anything that you are not conquering these days?
I mean, that was pretty good. I think you covered it. I think that's pretty much it. Wow, my life just flashed before my eyes.
It has been quite the life. Of course, we got to shout out to Bruce for teeing us up to make sure we kick this thing off right.
No. I mean, none of that would have been possible without Killer B, as I call him, Bruce Bernstein. He is the reason why I am covering the best league in all of sports and doing what I love to do. And it's been a dream come true because he gave me the opportunity. So anything for Killer B. And I'm so excited to be with you, Monica.
I am pumped and I love that. So let's jump right into it, Cassidy, because I think, I can remember you starting to pop up a little bit more at ESPN, right? I had just graduated from Georgetown in 2011. I knew I wanted to get in this business, and I used to keep my head on a swivel looking for women in positions that I would hope to be able to contend for one day, right? And so just to kind of watch, as we just read over your bio, your rise has been so fun, and everybody I know that knows you has been she is one of the most sincerest people that you have met. But in the process, Cassidy, talk to me about the journey, because where I am now, I often tell younger folks, there's no such thing as a wrong turn if you are doing your best, because some kind of way you always end up where you're supposed to be.
That happened to me a lot before I came into ESPN. I graduated college in 2007, and, the landscape of media was really changing. Just even 5 years prior, the only way to get into sports media was to, work your way up local news. And when I graduated, digital media was really, really starting to grow. Social media was launching. And so I was able to kind of take advantage of that. But with that said, I was mostly working freelance jobs and just trying to, get opportunities here and there. And I was with my husband at the time. And so, it was a tricky situation trying to balance making decisions that were right for my career, and then also my personal life and what fit best for me. And, there were a lot of stressful situations of having to say no to things or being rejected on things, which ultimately led me, there was a situation where I had an offer at another, network, and I got a call from ESPN and auditioned for them, and it just so happened to be in the same time frame where I had to make the hard decision to tell the other network that I wasn't going to go with them. And I think I developed a twitch because I was so nervous to turn that opportunity down, which was actually in my hometown, to go to ESPN. But it ended up being, the best decision for me because I knew, if I had my foot in the door, then I'll be able to try to, make something out of it. And that's kind of what happened when I got to ESPN. I mean, I've been there for 10 years. And when you say, walk me through the journey, it's really been a journey. It's been a climb. I mean, Bruce can attest to this. ESPN, while it is the mecca, and it's not lost on me that it's a standard that a lot of people strive to. You know, I entered it as an independent contractor, working on the digital side. I wasn't hired by the talent office, and so, you know, at the time, for the first couple of years, I was looked at as a digital talent. A lot of people didn't really understand how digital was going to continue to grow and essentially take over a lot of how we consume media. So before I, ramble on and on about my whole career, I guess my point is that there's no right path in this business. It's really just about keeping on moving forward and gaining experience and learning. And I guess I think that's pretty much the tale of my early years at ESPN.
Cassidy, one of the things you mentioned there in part of the reason for your success was social media. You were always way ahead of the curve on social media. And for older folks who worked with you, such as myself, I learned a lot about social media.
Don't talk about my friend. Yeah.
I mean, I learned so much about it from you. I mean, we did hundreds of NBA Tonight shows, right? But the one show that we did that really sort of hit on social media was the April Fool's Night with George Karl a few years ago. At that moment, that's when I realized, oh my God, this really is where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah. So for people who don't know what we're talking about, we got George Karl trending one night because shout out to Kevin Lowe, one of our production assistants at the time. He had the idea. We were coming up with like April Fool's jokes, and DeMarcus Cousins put out this April Fool's that he had like this album cover that he was coming out with an R&B album. And so we kind of just ripped off of that. And I was, hosting with George Karl, and we're like, George, let's pretend like you have a rap album coming out. And so, Killer B calls me straight Cass homie. So we did an album cover with me and George Karl, which was straight Cass homie and Swaggy G. And so then George Karl, from that point forward, was known as Swaggy G. And then that was one episode. And then we decided to kind of like build on this Swaggy G concept. And so, we just like to have fun in the last block. And so we had him name his top 5 rappers of all time. And back to Kalo, it was his idea that let's have his number one be like, at the time, Gucci Mane was in jail. But he was like an underground, his popularity was more underground, but if you know type of thing. And so we thought, hey, what's something that like maybe could make some waves on social media. And, Kalo came up with the fact that we should make Gucci Mane his number one rapper of all time. And the fact that he just delivered it is so like, and my number one rapper, the ice cream man himself, Gucci Mane. And so, we all know how social media works now. That little clip just blew up because, I don't even know, back in 2015, I guess, 2014?
2014.
2014.
Yeah.
And so NBA Twitter wasn't as rabid as it is now, but it was like the birth of it. Okay. Gucci Mane, his like group, I guess, because obviously maybe he's tweeting from jail, but retweeted it. And I just heard so many people come up to me and reach out to me and be like, this Swaggy G stuff is too funny. And it just, and then it just kind of became his nickname with us from that point forward. And, just kind of like George's personality as a coach, he's a fun guy, but I wouldn't necessarily say that he was probably, listening to hip hop in the locker room with guys. So I think even his former players, got a kick out of it as well. And I just think it, helped give a little more personality to our show that, aired at 1 a.m. often.
That is golden.
Hey Monica, the name of the album, the name of the fake album that Cass and Swaggy G did was called Ballin' and Shot Callin'.
Oh, I love it. That is epic.
We had some fun. And to Killa's point, really, because NBA Tonight, I think I was on it from 2013 to 2016
end of the 16 season, yeah.
Yeah. To me, that's like kind of when NBA Twitter was really, really starting to gain this type of popularity. And me, Bruce, and our show producer, Jeff Anderson, on a nightly basis, like we would use it as a tool. We would use it as a tool to, figure out what people are talking about, what they're interested in, to make sure that we caught certain funny moments that we would do in our segment that we called Hoops or Oops, which, is similar to like the Not Top 10, but on a nightly basis. And, it became such a tool because, on a night where there's 15 games or so, you can't watch every single game, every single minute rather of every single game. And so Twitter just kind of helped us keep track of, everything that was that was trending and creating a buzz. And it helped us really stack our rundown about what was more interesting. I mean, maybe some people thought, J.R. Smith untying someone's shoe was more interesting than, I don't know, no disrespect, but like a Grizzlies, buzzer beater in November.
Right.
And so it was a tool that we really used, and I think helped me kind of have a connection with people and build that relationship with NBA fans.
I think that's awesome. Now, a couple things have happened, though, too, Cassidy, that I've observed anyway over the course of your rise. And I want to hear your perspective on this. You being able to come up with an April Fool's joke that plays on both you and Coach Karl and an album, like that's fun, right? And I think we've seen sort of this shift at ESPN where we're seeing more personalities from their talent and stuff like that. And so like when we get an opportunity to see you on the sideline, one, you seem to have an incredible rapport with the players, but two, I don't see you as robotic. Like you seem to have been able to be very true to yourself throughout the journey. Even down to, sis, honestly, like rocking your hoop earrings, like even down to that, right? Is that something that you set out to do deliberately, or like, tell me how you've been able to be true to you and also the game in a sense.
Girl, I'm just trying to survive out there.
I get it.
Survive out these streets. I wish it were deliberate because it would mean that I had, a little more control. But right now, I will be completely honest with you. Before I left NBA Tonight in 2016, as Bruce pointed out, I had done sidelines maybe twice in my life. I described myself as a house cat. The studio was my home, and at the time when I was taken off studio, I'd never felt better about my abilities on air than I did in that moment, because I felt so in control. I felt like I had ownership over something. With NBA Tonight and NBA Coast to Coast, I had the perfect group that I was working with, and Bruce and Jeff. We could say anything to each other. We could be honest. We could be constructive. We could continue to help push each other to grow. And so it was a hard transition for me, because I went from a place of complete comfort to going out and covering games, and really not having a full understanding how sideline reporting really works, and then especially on the NBA side of things, which is more so making sure you have the right relationships and making sure you know who to go to when you need answers. And really, the biggest thing you need is just to be around, and for players to get comfortable with you, and to be at shoot around, and for them to feel like they can trust that you're someone who respects the game. And so I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to figure out, how to be better at it. And I think it came at a really good time, even though I was bummed that I couldn't continue on NBA Tonight and NBA Coast to Coast. I think, in anyone's career, if you don't find yourself at a crossroads to kind of improve and, the cliche that a lot of people like using is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, then you're going to be in a stalemate. And this career is not a situation where you can just kind of be. You need to continue to reinvent yourself just so you can grow with the game, because the game is continuing to reinvent itself. So I'm still learning. I think the next step for me is just continuing to build my relationship. So I feel, like you said, like when I'm talking to them post game, that the comfort level is there. That so when I am having an interview, that my ears are completely open. I think a big lesson for any reporter is to make sure you're as present as possible, because you'll miss something. And oftentimes when people are starting off, and that happened to me a lot when I was working on SportsCenter, I would, decide what I was going to say while, the person was talking, my analyst or, the guest, and I would miss something because I was too worried about being perfect instead of being in the moment. So I think just knowledge is power there, and especially out in the field and on sidelines, is just making sure that I'm building my knowledge about the game, my relationships, and making sure that I'm continuing to be a part of the fabric.
Yeah, I love that. So then once you had to shake your house cat comfort, how long did it take for you to get a rhythm on the NBA sidelines?
I mean, I'm still trying to get it. I mean, this year was difficult for me. I will admit, because I think a big part of what has led to my success has been the fact that I'm, from the beginning, like, just dive in completely to what's happening on a day-to-day basis on social media, in the games, and, being away on maternity leave and having a whole new priority in my life with my daughter, was a difficult balance. And, going back to work, while it was, necessary for me and for my daughter to make sure that I still felt like myself, it was hard for me because I did feel a little behind. And that in itself kind of built on, to me, preparation is everything, especially with sidelines, because, even though you only get like 30 to 40 seconds to give a report, and maybe you will prepare 20 reports and one gets in, you still need to be prepared, because you're an essential part of telling, certain stories of the game, even if you don't have as much real estate as the play-by-play and analyst. So, I felt comfortable because I knew arenas, I had relationships, but, now I think it's just about like continuing to make sure that I cannot just rest on my laurels. Like, I have to be plugged in as much as I can, because this is the NBA. It constantly changes. So, when do I feel comfortable? I'm not comfortable yet. And I think that's a good thing, because it makes me want to, strive to get better and better.
One of the things that I believe has always been one of your big strengths is that preparation. I mean, I remember sitting around the table with you and the crew in the meetings. Nobody was more prepared than you, but in spite of all of your prep, or not in spite of it, but along with your preparation, you were always very receptive to the best idea. And it didn't really matter who it came from. It could have come from myself or one of the analysts. It could have come from the teleprompter person. And I think because of your way of dealing with people, you're like, you have real leadership qualities when it comes to accepting the ideas of others and not having a big ego about this stuff. And preparation, you could prepare a million things, but you know what? You'd be more than happy to toss any one of them
if somebody else came up with something better. And that is a very, very appealing quality.
Well, I appreciate that, Bruce. And, it's essential. I mean, this work is not about you. I mean, this work is about, there's enough personality in the league, that you don't need to try to outshine LeBron James, so like this is about trying to get the best out of everybody. And mainly, how can we tell the stories the best? And I think that goes to say, like, I think it's a little even harder on sidelines, like to the point of, you really don't get a lot of moments. I mean, really, you have a report at the beginning. You may or may not be on camera. Who cares? And then you have your, after first and after third coaches interviews, which they despise. And quite frankly, I don't love either, because there's no great question to ask, because you can't ask anything about strategy, obviously. So you don't want to have your secrets being told on national television while you're in the game. And, there's only so much you can ask. And then, so the post-game interview really is your moment to capitalize on all your preparation, all of your relationships, all of that. So, having I call sidelines the toughest, easiest job, I think, in sports, because you have such a short amount of time to make a really big impact that can oftentimes live longer than sometimes even the game on a nightly basis, because you're the first person to get a reaction from the player about whatever happened. And so as far as like making sure you don't have an ego, it's about putting the work first, and with that, if it's important to you, you'll get recognition because you're doing the job well.
Man, Cass, I swear that was Bible, because like, so you're in such a unique position because NBA Twitter, NBA fans, they're rabid, right? And so
yeah,
by virtue of the consumption and the knowledgeable fan base, like in your position, you become a little bit of a celebrity, right? Like you're part of NBA Twitter, but at the same time, you're so right in that it's not about you. And I meet so many kids that like want to be on TV and want to be a sideline reporter, but you're like,
right.
You're just summing up the part that you see when you see people on TV, not the relationships, not the thoughtful questions, not the crazy hours that go into the industry. So I just love that you said that. So let me ask you this then. When you do go into a post game, how do you sort of prioritize your questions, and are you already planning follow-ups, or does that go back to your point about being absolutely present in that moment because your player may lead you to something else?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on obviously like what happens in the game, but usually if it's a blowout, it's a completely different situation. I'll probably go more macro. Maybe one question about like what they were doing, so like what they executed so well in that game, and then maybe depending on the time of year, kind of try to get what the temperature is like with the team. Going forward, the conference, that kind of stuff. Just because we're a national broadcast and, we're having more casual fans watch. And I just feel like, if it's a blowout, I have an opportunity to kind of dig a little deeper. But if it's like a close game, usually around the 5-minute mark, I write on my notebook the possibilities of people I could be interviewing based on, who's the leading scorer, who's making big impacts, one on each team. And then I would start from like my final questions. Usually like the max questions I'll get would be 5. So I typically prepare 5 questions. There are times where I can only get 1 question in, or I won't be able to do any live interview and we just have to tape it because we have to go straight to the next game. But if they give me, if we have enough time, I'm gonna empty the barrel. So I'll start with my 5th question, which was really going into, the game, like a big storyline. I don't know, this is a silly example, but it's one that that is sticking out in my mind. You remember when LeBron James, like, posted that Arthur
The fist.
Fist.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, like, I guess I asked him about, that going forward. Are we going to see any more of those? And he responded maybe. And that was just something that I hope maybe have a moment that, that we can walk off and have some fun with. And so if there's an opportunity that presents itself like that, then, I'll maybe put that in the end. And then I will kind of fill in as we go along if there's any kind of records broken, any kind of trends or stats I need to pay attention to, like, this is your 10th straight game with 15 assists, like how, like what has changed about your court vision recently, like stuff like that, where it's a combo of micro macro. And then obviously I will save, the initial reaction for the top. So if there's like a couple big plays at the end, a dagger or a defensive stop, and then I'll try to ask about like those specific plays. So there's if I were to say my basic formula, that would be it. But of course, you got to be prepared to be just throw all that out the window. And I write it down just so it can pop in my head, but I don't read off of it. So I just kind of write it down so it's there and I have the words, because sometimes like I search for the right words, and so if I just write out the sentence, I'm like, okay, at least I have the words in my head, because oftentimes it can be an exciting moment, and I want to make sure that I phrase them correctly, because
right.
There's so many questions that like you can ask a lot of different ways that prompt different responses. So you also got to be cognizant of your phrasing, because with certain players, they can be put off if you're coming at them aggressively, or if you're not trying to relate to them in what's going on in their world. It's just these are all things that you just kind of need to be aware of when you're having these conversations, because as I don't know if you saw the clip of Blake Griffin on Jimmy Fallon about how he hates post-game interviews, because
we've got more coming up on Buckets, Boards, and Blocks with Cassidy Hubbarth of ESPN. But first, a plug for my Pure Hoops Media brothers. The Mike Wise Show drops each Monday. His recent guests have included Hall of Famer Chris Mullin, as well as Chauncey Billups, Jeff Van Gundy, and Mark Stein. Catch and Shoot with Noah and Adam recently had another Hall of Famer, Coach Larry Brown. The discussion about Larry's relationship with Allen Iverson is nothing short of compelling. Catch and Shoot drops each Wednesday. And Fridays, we've got the Pure Hoops Podcast with three-time NBA champ BJ Armstrong and Eric Newman. Please check out all of our shows. Rate them, review them, and most of all, enjoy. If you are listening to Buckets, Boards, and Blocks, this week we are so blessed to have Cassidy Hubbarth on as our guest. She's an NBA reporter extraordinaire, also hosts college football for ABC in the studio, and we are just having a fantastic conversation about her journey thus far. At this point in the conversation, though, Cass, we got to get into what has been nothing short of a wild NBA summer.
I don't even know who played for who.
Girl, right?
What team he played for?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we kept hearing Spencer Dinwiddie swears he was a part of this recruiting thing for Brooklyn, and I've read a handful of different articles where guys were like, different players are like, we knew, like nobody else knew. So I feel like, Cass, like you're almost as close as you can get to these guys outside of like Woj, who makes it his business to get all the answers. Were you hearing like rumors and stuff through the course of the season on the floor with these guys that Brooklyn might actually be the team to clean up?
No, I wasn't hearing during the season. I was hearing definitely the Knicks during the season.
Okay.
A lot of rumors and a lot of connections that were being made. And I do think it took a turn. From what I understand, the original intent was the Knicks, but I don't know what happened. But I know come the end of the regular season, it was pretty much set in stone that Kyrie was going to Brooklyn. Now, as far as we'll find out from Katie soon, but the story of when Katie decided, I'm not sure. Some people said it was decided long ago that he was, going to team up with Kyrie. But I would be surprised if it really took him until after this injury to make his decision to leave.
Oh my gosh. All right, so of all the things that is happening, would that be the most shocking for you? Or what is the thing that kind of made you sit down and double check the tweet?
I mean, okay, so if I'm going to be real with you, so like I'm close with Woj, and I kind of got a, rumblings of what could have happened with Kawhi and Paul George.
Okay.
But that was like minutes before it was going to happen. So I think maybe just kind of being tipped off, and the fact that I was recovering from an earthquake.
Oh my God, Cass, talk about it.
But I think the move that stopped me in my tracks was Westbrook to the Rockets.
Okay.
I think that one is just what I recall being like, oh my gosh, what? Like, what?
Okay, so talk to me. Talk to me about that reaction. Was that because Westbrook and James Harden, there's only one ball? Was that because, wow, the Rockets really shipped CP3? Like, what was going through your head?
All of the above. It was like, what? Westbrook what is the Thunder now? Poor CP3. How is that gonna work? Like you said, there's only one ball. Like it was all of it. I just think it's a combination of the end of an era with OKC, CP3 being basically, done dirty and shipped away, and and then Westbrook and Harden reuniting, and really intrigued by it, but pretty certain that's not going to work. so I mean, that was what that was. Paul George and Kawhi, it just kind of all made sense. Even with Paul George forcing his way out of the contract and it being the ultimate power move by Kawhi, and I just think it was all kind of building up into that point. Anyone who would doubt that Kawhi, just because he's quiet doesn't mean this man doesn't know what he's doing. As we saw with what happened with the Spurs, he felt like he wasn't being treated right, so he wanted out. And no one goes up against the Spurs and Popovich and R.C. Buford, and he did. And then he goes to Toronto and he wins an NBA title. And everyone still knew, he's not going to stay. And so it's just this guy doesn't say much, but he's making moves like Kendrick Perkins would say, actually Kendrick Lamar said it, real G's move in silence like lasagna. That's
Cass,
Kawhi.
that's Wayne. That's Wayne, because that was my song in college. That's Lil Wayne. Come on, Cass.
Oh, you're right. You're right, Monica. Don't take points away from me right now.
I got you. I still love you, girl.
Right. That's Carter 3, right?
There you go. Okay. There you go.
Okay. My bad. So and then with Paul George, we knew he wanted to be in LA. It kind of didn't make sense that he, stayed another year in OKC. It just kind of him wanting to leave, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, that's not really going to work. Russ and Paul George and OKC, they're good. They're just not going to be good enough. I guess the Paul George and Kawhi, while shocking and obviously changing the landscape of the league, just wasn't, I guess it just kind of made sense. Whereas Russ to Houston, you're what? Okay. So that's my take on that.
Hey, so Cass, one of the things that I think, ESPN deserves a lot of credit for is they've been stressing diversity for a really long time. I mean, long before it became a buzzword in the whole popular culture world. George Bodenheimer, way back when, had pointed out that not only is it the right thing to do, but it's good for business. And you're a big part of that with one of the podcasts that you've worked on called The Hoop Collective. Tell us a little bit about that and how you feel when you do that show.
Well, I mean, it's great right now. Brian Windhorst is taking over as the main host of that show, but you know, it was great. Last year, me, Chene, and Ramona Shelburne, actually, and Chene Agumake, did a show every Monday, and it was awesome to have like an all-female pod, you know, kicking off the week and just reacting. And we're all in 3 different places. And we had 3 different perspectives, me being, you know, a host sideline reporter, Ramona being a newsbreaker, and Janae obviously being an active WNBA all-star, as well as one of our you know, stars on the rise, NBA analyst. So, you know, that was really fun to just kind of be able to just talk with my friends, who also happen to be some of my closest friends, about the game every week. And then this year, you know, what was really great was I did the Hoop Collective podcast after basically every finals game. And so being able to react, you know, on the floor, actually, we recorded it on the floor after every finals game to just kind of bring the audience to the atmosphere that we were experiencing. And this was my first finals actually this year, because I would always be a house cat and be back in studio. So Hoop Collective actually gave me an opportunity, Hoop Stream, too many hoops, you know, gave me an opportunity to be on the road for the finals. And so, you know, it was an incredible experience to be able to be there and understand like the pinnacle of the league and be a part of it. And so, you know, I enjoyed doing Hoop Streams before the game and then be able to do Hoop Collective after the game. I really felt like I was a big part of our coverage, which our finals coverage, which really I haven't been in the years past.
I loved it. I had an opportunity to catch out the Hoop Stream. You guys are having so much fun. I think Perk is definitely on the rise as one of my favorite new NBA voices, because he got things to say and is not cutting cards.
No, I just love him. And you know what? I totally like misread him, like as a player, you know, to take a line from Cat Williams. Like I used to just thought he was like this dude who was mad at breakfast, like all the time, just mad. Okay. And he is the biggest teddy bear and just one of those people who keeps it real. And I think that's why he's earned that respect from players. And even when he kind of like talks, I won't even say jump, or he would just really kind of like be a little more brutally honest. I think people realize that doesn't sway from who they knew as a player. And so as long as you're being authentic and 100% all the time, I don't think people can hold that against you.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a winning, successful, you know, way for an NBA analyst. And he is so close to so many of the biggest stars in the game. And there's something to that. There's something to that perspective that makes you want to listen. And he's just so fun and country, and he loves it.
Yes, very country.
Texas boy, and he's just such a joy to be around. He's, you know, those people who just like radiate, you know, positivity, and that's him. So, you know, we were so fortunate to be able to have him on our show, you know, for the first season on the road.
Loved that for sure. Well, Cass, this conversation has been fantastic, but there's a signature way that we end Buckets, Boards, and Blocks, the podcast. So this is how I'm going to tee you up. The overarching umbrella for the subject is going to be the NBA offseason. I'm going to ask you to blindly choose either a bucket, board, or block, and then I'll explain what I need from you based on your selection. Bucket, board, or block, Cassidy Hubbarth.
Oh, okay. Wow, I'm slow. Bucket.
Okay, a bucket. All right, so now I need from you, in the NBA offseason of 2019, what you would personally consider to be a bucket, as we've all taken it all in. And by bucket, I mean nothing but net, A++. You want more of this thing moving forward. What's your bucket, Cass, from the NBA offseason 2019? Huh?
That happened in the offseason?
Let's just stick to offseason, yeah.
Okay. My bucket is parity in the NBA.
Okay.
I want more of that, which we're getting, and I want to see how now we've gone from the super teams, the dynamic duos. I can't wait to see how that plays out.
Okay, so on your parody, would you agree with Vegas that it's the Clippers and the Lakers that are the favorites?
No.
Okay.
I will definitely put, I don't know. I guess.
Yeah,
but
right?
I just feel strong. I feel strongly about, like, the East, finding a way, whether it be the Bucks or the Sixers.
Okay. That's legit. I like that. Parity as the bucket from the NBA offseason 2019. Cassidy, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Oh, okay, now I get it. Don't you love how I understood the whole segment after the fact? I'm sorry, I totally fumbled that. But we got through it. Parody, let's go. Fuck it.
Listen, parody was a strong answer. You nailed it. Don't worry.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Cass. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye, Killa.
So long, Cass.
All right, let's go. Time to stick the landing.
All right, this week for my BBB, I'm going to go to my home team. And I'm going to reserve my bucket and call this one a board. I think what Ted Leonsis is trying to do in terms of revamping the front office and the decision makers around the Wizards is forward thinking and fresh. And I pray to God that it works out because the Wiz needs some help. If you're not familiar, check out the Washington Post article about that. Candace Buckner did a great job detailing the addition of John Thompson III to the Wizards staff, Tommy Shepard officially becoming the GM. We got folks coming over from soccer and the NFL. So I'm going to give that a board and hope that it works out for the Wizards. Thanks to Cassidy Hubbarth of ESPN for spending some quality time with us and chopping it up. Thanks to my super producer and loyal sidekick, Bruce Bernstein, and our fantastic editor, Ben Wolfen, and Pops for coming through this week. Please check out our other shows from Pure Hoops Media, The Mike Wise Show, Catch and Shoot with Adam Stenko and Noah Kozlov, The Pure Hoops Podcast with BJ Armstrong and Eric Newman. We'll be back next Thursday with buckets, boards, and blocks. But until then, enjoy your hoops.
Buckets, Boards and Blocks with Monica McNutt has been a presentation of Pure Hoops Media.